Welcome to the webinar, The Need to Improve Speed and Accuracy in Financial Close and Disclosures, brought to you by the Controllers Council and Insight Software. My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council. And before I turn the webcast over to our expert presenters, let me mention some brief housekeeping items. First, use the GoToWebinar control panel to ask our experts questions. Second, we will have some polling questions. So again, use the GoToWebinar control panel to answer polls and see how you compare to your peers. And finally, you will receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours, so no need for notes or screenshots. Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce our sponsor, Insight Software, a leading provider of financial reporting and enterprise performance management software. With more than 28,000 organizations worldwide relying on Insight Software's portfolio of best-in-class reporting, analytics, budgeting, forecasting, consolidation, and tax solutions to achieve increased productivity, visibility, accuracy, and compliance. So with that, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Trying to get to that next slide, and it's not, whoops, just a little slow. There we are. I'd like to introduce our presenters and subject matter experts, Evan Conrad, Senior Product Manager of Certain Disclosure Management by Insight Software, Jamie Egan, VP of Product Management of Longview by Insight Software, and Anna Sever, Director of Solutions Engineering at Insight Software. Jamie, take it away.
Thank you, Neil. Turn on my calendar or my camera here. And move out of our space. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us today. And we'll get right into it. We've got a lot of ground to cover. And at the end, we'll share a short demonstration of the automation and integration capabilities to help speed your close and disclosure management processes. So the agenda today, we've already covered the introductions. Then we're going to touch on the demands on close and disclosure, sort of at a macro level. From there, we'll talk about financial consolidation needs more specifically, and bridging the gap between that natural financial consolidation process and your disclosure management process is integrating those two together. At that point, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Evan, and he'll walk through sort of the more disclosure management specific side of the demonstration or the webinar today. And then we'll end it, as I said, with a short 10-minute sort of a short 10-minute demonstration of our applications. And then we'll open it up to Q&A as Neil had discussed. So this is some of what Neil has already shared around our organization. The only thing that I'd like to say is it's already a little bit out of date. We are now over $500 million in annual revenue and up to almost 2,000 employees globally. So we're growing rapidly, both organically and through acquisition. So the first polling question that we're going to ask today is your company publicly traded? And the reason for that is it will probably help us tailor some of the discussion points that we'll incorporate into our talk track. So this is more of an understanding of our audience question, and then we'll be able to provide more useful content to your particular space. So the poll's now open. You have roughly 30 seconds about that to provide an answer. And we're about 80% voted so far. And there we go. Roughly 85% of you voted. We're at about 80% of non-publicly traded and roughly 20% publicly traded. Okay. All right, so as we move, demands on the close and disclosure process. We have a bit of a polling question that's more geared towards your current processes. And what would you consider being the greatest demand on your time? Is it data gathering and validation, ad hoc reporting requests that often come up in that close cycle, that tight close cycle? People management training, so do you have a lot of knowledge silos or turnover? They talk a lot about sort of the great resignation right now. People have called that out. And then or report book creation. So really the presentation and output of the report book that you would produce at the end of a close cycle. Okay. Once again, we'll have about 30 seconds to respond to this particular question, and then we'll get into the heart of the webinar. So I think it's pretty clear where it's going to likely end up already based on the volume of responses. But we're at, start sharing it here in a second. Okay. So once again, almost at the 80% vote threshold. And what we're seeing is around 62% for data gathering and validation, 14% for those ad hoc report requests, 20% for people management and training, and 5% for report book creation. Okay,